In nearly 800 shows over more than 17 years, I had the privilege of interviewing two Supreme Court justices. We did a terrific two-part series with Justice Antonin Scalia, filmed in his judicial chambers in the Supreme Court. We hooked the interview with Justice Scalia, a rock star on the court, because he and I found each other locked in the same room at a royal palace in Amman, waiting to meet with Jordan's King Abdullah. Scalia had no choice but to say yes to my request, and even then it took months to arrange. And then we did a fantastic show with Justice Stephen Breyer. In contrast, Justice Breyer came to our modest studios, and he wasn't cornered into doing the interview. We just sent him an email, and he said yes. After nearly 3 decades as a consistent liberal voice on the court, liberal but not radically so, Justice Breyer announced his retirement. There had been a lot of pressure on Breyer, the oldest of the court's justices, to retire so that President Biden could name his successor, while Democrats still retained the slimmest of majorities in the Senate, which confirms all federal judicial appointments. That is precisely what Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a judicial icon to generations of Americans, did not do, leaving Donald Trump with the opportunity in his final weeks as president to replace a stalwart liberal with a dedicated conservative, perhaps changing the direction of the court for decades. Breyer didn't want the same legacy. The real innovation in choosing Justice Breyer's successor is that President Biden has promised to name the first Black woman to the Supreme Court. Some are outraged, saying that the president has cheapened a process that should be based solely on merit, not on race, religion, or ethnicity. As a committed believer in meritocracy, the notion that people should earn their stripes, not awarded them based on some genetic code, I understand this complaint, but I disagree. For decades, race, religion, and ethnicity have played a role in Supreme Court nominations. These factors bring lived experience to a court, we should remember, and it's a court that's made up of people, not just the law books they read, study, and wrote. These factors go back to the appointment by Andrew Jackson of the first Catholic, Roger Taney, in 1836, to the first Jew, Louis Brandeis, named by Woodrow Wilson in 1916, to the first African-American, Thurgood Marshall, named by Lyndon Johnson in 1967, and Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman, named by Ronald Reagan in 1981, and on to Sonia Sotomayor, the first Hispanic, named by Barack Obama in 2009. What once was rare is now common. A court that for decades was all Protestant now has none, or at most one. There are 6 Catholics, perhaps 7, as Neil Gorsuch's religion is unclear, and 2 Jews. Over time, rarity becomes less so. Eventually, I hope this becomes the case with race too. But we're not there yet. And to get there, you have to have the first. And that goes for Black women too. A first, a second, and a third. We need to start.